Thank you very much, Paula. It's great to be here, and it's always a pleasure to present at CEDA. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to Elders past and present, to John Langalont, to the Honourable Martin Aldridge, to Dave Kelly, to, I think the Honourable Ian Campbell is here, former Senator, to Mike Rowe, Sue Murphy and Eva Skira, and I know we've got a few of our other Water Corporation board members in the room as well. And to ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along and showing an interest in what I think is our state's most precious resource. Today we're specifically talking about how we're managing that resource for economic growth. And in Western Australia, water has always been the key to our growth. If you think about the Goldfields Pipeline, if you think about the Ord Valley, about Wellington Dam, these are all major infrastructure projects that pushed the state forward and allowed us to grow the economy. And that's why water has been at the centre of this state government's vision to diversify and strengthen our state's economy. When we came to government in 2008, we came with a very clear agenda for economic development, not just in our cities, but also in regional Western Australia. And since becoming Minister for Water in 2013, I've driven my agencies to deliver on water initiatives to help urban and regional communities tap into the transformative power of water. Forgive the pun, but we now have a pipeline of initiatives across the state, and I think it's worthwhile talking about a few of them. Before I get to that, I think in my role, obviously there are a number of KPIs that every Minister for Water would need to meet. So if I can just run through the top three. Have we planned and invested to enable people to turn on their taps, fill their glass with safe drinking water, have a shower and flush the toilet? Have we managed our groundwater and our surface water resource sustainably across the state? And are we facilitating the development of livable and productive communities? I think those three elements are probably the foundations of what everyone in all of my agencies turn their mind to on a daily basis. And to spice it up, we've been asked to do all of that and meet those KPIs in the context of a rapidly drying climate and a significant population growth over the last 8 years. Despite this, I think that our water story in WA is a good one, and my clear instruction to the team has been that water cannot be the limiting factor as we press forward with an agenda to grow our state's economy. And I also say that government does not have all the answers. That's one of the reasons that we created a Water Innovation Advisory Group, which is being chaired by the Honourable Matt Taylor, MLA, and we invited people like one of our speakers today, Dr Paul Hardesty from CSIRO, and a number of others with expertise to set their minds to how we can do better. I am very clear about that. Government does not have all the answers, and we need to make sure that we are using the experience and knowledge of everyone in this state. They are due to provide me with a report very soon, and I'm looking forward to receiving it. Perth is predicted to be the Australian city most severely impacted by water scarcity associated with climate change, and that would be not a sentence that you would be unfamiliar with. In 2010, the then Minister for Water, it was the Honourable Bill Marmion, announced a 10-year framework to provide Western Australians with comfort that the state government had a plan to manage this emerging challenge, specifically in relation to our potable water supply. We said we'd shift our abstraction from the shallow to deeper aquifers. We committed to a groundwater replenishment scheme. We committed to expand our seawater desalination capacity, and we said we'd continue to make gains in water use efficiency and use wastewater recycling as a resource for industry, public open spaces and agriculture. Now, we've done all of that, and we've done it, again, as I said before, in the context of a climate drying faster than anyone had predicted and a massive increase in our state's population. In 2011, we made a $1.5 billion investment to expand our desalination infrastructure and deliver an additional 100 billion litres of water. Desal now provides almost half of Perth's scheme water needs, and that is an incredibly important part of our entire management of the resource, given that we are seeing our rainfall and runoff continue to decrease. In July this year, I announced that we will be investing $232 million to expand our groundwater replenishment scheme to recharge up to 28 billion litres of water a year. That is a first for Australia, and it's been a project that's been managed by the Water Corporation with very little resistance from the community, and my congratulations go to the team that's been involved in delivering that project. It will change the way that we manage our water resource in Western Australia, and there will certainly be further opportunities for us to use this technology around the state. By the end of the year, we will be recharging up to 14 billion litres of water each year into Perth's groundwater supplies, and in time that's going to deliver enough water each year to supply 100,000 households. We've also continued to invest heavily in science to support this work. So the Department of Water, they've invested $7 million into the Perth Region Confined Aquifer Capacity Project, which means we now have a comprehensive three-dimensional model of our underground water systems that allows us to identify where the best locations are in our state to draw water from, as well to recharge water into the aquifers. So we now see every wastewater plant as an opportunity to enhance our water supply, and that is something that we should be very proud of as a state. We've also made big gains, and Sue, block your ears because I know you don't like me telling this to anyone, but we've made some big gains in domestic water efficiency. We can always do better. We still have a very high individual water use compared to others around the nation. But on average, our household water use has dropped from 140 kilolitres per person in 2011 to 127 kilolitres per person in 2016. We've met that target because we set that some time ago. We set that and we were hoping to meet the 127 by 2020, so we're 5 years ahead of schedule. It is a solid record, and we know that Western Australians are attuned to our water-wise messaging. But if we want to drop that down again, if we want to make the next target, we need to make a big step change in the way that we are doing things here in the state. And we need to do it as a collective. We need to be smarter about how we use and think about water in our urban spaces. Both the Department of Water and Water Corporation are partners in the Cooperative Research Centre for Water Sensitive Cities, and their research is focused on improving the resilience and the sustainability, productivity and livability of our cities and towns, and it's already offering some very practical solutions that are being implemented. So the state government has housing authority projects in the established suburb of Bentley and the new suburb of Brabham. So we're looking at infill and also greenfields developments, and both have adopted water-wise and water-sensitive design, and they've incorporated innovative water thinking into their master planning. And this approach can also be seen in Whitegum Valley at a Landcorp-led housing development that combines urban infill with evidence-based water-wise measures. We're aiming for a 70% reduction in current scheme water consumption, all within the framework of a modern and attractive property development. None of it's rocket science. You're all in this industry, but I think getting the combination right and making sure that we include all of the decision makers and regulatory bodies up front is the key to success. And precinct scale planning is a must. We need the community to continue to embrace the principles of water-wise households, but it's simply too hard to make that next step change in what we need to achieve on a house-by-house basis to achieve that water efficiency, so that we can continue to enjoy the lifestyle that we have become accustomed to in this great state. So it requires our developers, our planners, our regulatory bodies, local governments, everyone that's involved in the design of our built environment to be engaged in that discussion, and it's a good discussion to be having, because I think we have built some time for ourselves to make sensible decisions going forward, and we need a few to really drive that agenda going forward and set the example. Let me shift on to something a little bit different, but no less important. More than 80% of Western Australians live in or around our estuaries. Take the Peel-Harvey estuary system, for example. It's valued very much by locals and tourists. It's a very important rest point for the millions of migratory birds who stop every year on their annual migration from as far away as China. It's home to the blue swimmer crab, which is a very valuable recreational and commercial fishery, and it also contains many places of significance for traditional owners. The City of Mandurah has estimated that more than $1 billion of investment is based around this estuary. Reduced rainfall and increasing population, urban development, intensified agriculture have all impacted on the health of this estuary and waterways and the surrounding catchments. Earlier this year, I made an announcement around investing $20 million to improve the health of our 6 most at-risk regional waterways in the southwest of the state. It's called the Regional Estuaries Initiative. It's funded by royalties for regions, and it is the single biggest investment the state government has made in managing Western Australia's regional estuaries. Just remember, $1 billion worth of investment around the Peel-Harvey estuary alone. We are funding on-ground works, new science and modelling, and we're improving our regional management capacity by partnering with very respected NRM and local catchment groups to deliver the project. And it means that we are managing these waterways for future generations and underpinning a very important local economic driver. Many of you probably remember the establishment of the Dawesville Cut. It was a $76 million bandage that was made following the collapse of the Peel-Harvey ecosystem. We want to avoid getting to this stage again so that these waterways can continue to support the state's economy and deliver benefits to everyone that lives on or around them or works near them or recreates on them. Staying in regional WA, another program that I'm very proud of called Watering WA. We've also provided funding to reduce regional communities and farm businesses' reliance on scheme water. So $30 million investment funded by royalties for regions. It's the state's single biggest investment into regional community non-drinking water supplies, and we are working with communities and businesses to provide the opportunity to develop infrastructure to harvest, treat and distribute stormwater, recycled water and bore water. The program will allow us to deliver more projects like one that's been recently completed in Beverley, which means that we've got 22 million litres of extra water per year for use for the local community. So they are using natural and man-made features to harvest stormwater, which means they have a substantial volume of water that was never available to them in the past. It's water that used to run down the street, and it now meets up to 50% of the town's public open space irrigation needs, as well as providing an emergency water supply in fire and in times of dry seasons. Scheme water is not cheap. Some would say otherwise, but it is an expensive commodity when you live in a very dry part of the state. And so that's a reduction for ratepayers who were using previously scheme water to keep their public open space green. It also reduces the state's costs by allowing us to reduce the amount of water we need to extract or create and then treat and send down the pipe. So that community grant program is available to local governments or businesses that are in partnership with local governments in low rainfall areas for the first 2 years, which is around areas less than 600 mil of rainfall a year. But the business part of it is the part that I think some of you may be interested in, because if you do have tech or systems that might assist these communities to maximise the opportunity that we've provided, then I urge you to get in touch with the Department of Water and they will put you in touch with the right people to contact. It's been welcomed with great interest by those communities. It's something that we've done particularly well in some parts of the state, but I think there is certainly more gains to be made. Now, it wouldn't be a CEDA water event without talking about our flagship economic development project, which is designed to grow and diversify our agricultural and food sector. Many of you will have heard me talk about water for food already. It's a $40 million program, again underwritten by royalties for regions, supporting 11 separate projects across the state. So we are supporting projects from Kununurra in the north down to Manjimup in the south. We are partnering with communities and industry to make better use of water to meet that growing demand that we know exists internationally and nationally for clean and green food. These projects are fairly basic at the ground level. It is a groundwater investigation or proving up the sustainability of resources in all areas. We're also working with irrigators to come up with schemes or storage models for distribution, identifying precincts where we can develop irrigated agriculture, and of course there's our demonstration stand and graze model up at Mowanjum in the Kimberley. So Mowanjum is the project that we spend a lot of time talking about, because for me it is transforming a community one step at a time. There's no rose-coloured glasses. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that this is the thing that is going to end some of the dysfunction we see in this part of the state, but it's most certainly a good step forward. And it's a collaboration with a 400-strong Aboriginal community located just on the outskirts of Derby. So there is a population base there that, if we can get this right and provide opportunities for people to be engaged in something other than mining, and diversify that part of the world's economy, I think it is a positive outcome as a result of our investment. It's a demonstration model for other pastoral stations in the Kimberley, and the crop research and the irrigation data and the herd analysis is being shared to enable growth of pastoral operations and capitalise on the world's expanding beef market. I know it's working because there's a neighbouring pastoral company that I spoke to the other day that are putting their own money into creating a very similar project as the Mowanjum one. They are using all the data and the tech and the information that's being generated by that trial and applying it on their own property, and it means that they can concentrate on building their business instead of needing to do the trial and error that would probably set them back 5 or 6 years in the process. So that is one example of how that trial is providing support to others, but certainly it is creating an enormous opportunity for Mowanjum itself. More than 668 bales of hay and silage, averaging about 300 kilograms each, have been cut since the pivot was commissioned in August 2015. And that's also assisting them to diversify their station's cattle operation. Their first consignment of around 240 Brahman cross cattle from the Stand and Graze operation was exported to Indonesia through Broomport in April 2016. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, there was some scraggly and very scary looking cattle roaming around the back blocks of Mowanjum. They have done a considerable amount to change this into something that has attracted not one but 2 commercial partners to assist them to continue to grow. There are 2 Aboriginal trainees and currently 15 locals employed in a full-time 3-month fencing contract as a result of the project, and they are working very hard to create more job pathways. They are not big numbers, I said that, but in the eyes of our critics and outsiders, but for that community it is most definitely a start. And I think one of the most exciting outcomes is how Mowanjum has attracted those commercial partners I spoke of. They've now got a commercial agreement with agribusiness specialist Davies Limited for agronomic services and farm development advice, and they've struck an agistment and management partnership with Pardue Beef Corporation, which is developing a major Wagyu breeding herd in the Pilbara and the West Kimberley. So Bruce Chung's Pardue Beef vision is to establish a herd of 123,000 Wagyu breeders in the Northern Rangelands by 2031, and Mowanjum is now an integral cog in the wheel of that development as part of this exciting economic diversification story in the north. Our groundwater investigations are the enabler for these enterprises to make informed decisions and to convince investors that Western Australia is a good place to park their money. And I'm very pleased to report that Mowanjum's Stand and Graze model is now being considered by other Aboriginal corporations and stations, including Nookambah in the Fitzroy Valley and Nita Downs south of Broome. And we've also recently approved a project, all private sector investment at Go-Go Station, which was made possible because of the land tenure pathway we've created under this Water for Food program. So that single green circle on that very parched red pindan landscape in the northern dry season at Derby is a reminder to all of us what can happen if you just add water. From a very small and not a significant amount of money, the flow-on effects in that part of the state are quite considerable. Our other projects are progressing really well, and we have a similar opportunity in the southwest of the state where a majority of our population lives. Mile Up Wellington project, you may have heard me speak of this previously. We're aiming to unlock the potential of the second largest reservoir in the state, Wellington Dam, which is currently of very limited use to growers and industry because the 85 billion litres of water is too salty. I think it sits at around 1,100 parts per million. It is the second biggest resource we have in the state, and it seems criminal that we can't come up with a solution to make it work for our community. We are working with a private proponent, along with Harvey Water and others in the sector, on a full feasibility study of potential infrastructure improvements to manage the water quality and security for irrigators in the Collie River Irrigation District and the Mile Up Irrigation Precinct. The multiplier effect for them to have access to pressurised piped water and water of good quality is substantial. They are close to markets, they have good transport links, there are good growers down there that know what they're doing, and they have access to a labour force. For the project to work, it is going to take a partnership between the state, the Commonwealth and the private sector. We have 2 that I'm fairly sure will be willing to put funding on the table. I am hopeful that the Commonwealth will come to the party, and if if now isn't the time for the Commonwealth to make that investment, given the woeful situation of our GST, then I'm not sure what is, because it is truly a project that could change the economy of the southwest of the state. The other project that I've got really high hopes for is in Manjimup and Pemberton, in the horticultural district down there. We grow some wonderful truffles, avocados, apples. They are significant suppliers, and they've done an amazing amount of work to drag themselves out of a situation where they saw their main economic driver pulled out from underneath of them when old growth logging was finished. It's taken some time. They've rebuilt themselves as an irrigation precinct with some significant expertise, and these growers have been working with us to develop a system that's based on funding that's been provided to Tasmania for the Tasmanian irrigation cooperative model, and they're willing to put $10 million of their own money on the table, growers, individual growers, collectively, because they are so confident that this is a game changer for them. It's exciting, and if we can get it off the ground, it will allow that region to build on the work that they've been doing over the last 10 years to really recast themselves as a precinct for excellence in food. And very quickly, because we've got the Honourable Martin Aldridge sitting in the room today, I want to talk about the Midlands Project. Martin chairs the community reference group that we are working on groundwater investigations in the Midlands, so between the North metropolitan area and Geraldton, a very prospective area in terms of water availability, but quite scattered, and you need to create precincts where people can have confidence that if they put a bore down, that they're going to find sustainable and quality water. It's really important from our perspective because there is growing pressure on the northern metropolitan areas, urban growth pushing out, the Nangara Mound is under pressure, there's a lot of growers that are reliant on water in that area. So if we aren't catering for people that want to get into the industry but also continue as that water environment changes in and around the Nangara, then we are failing to plan to make sure that we have an ongoing economic driver for that region and for those people involved in the industry. So we are planning ahead, not only for our current industry, but for those that seek to enter for the first time. And that project, we are doing some detailed work at the moment on one of the precincts, but there were several identified, and I think if we have success in securing further funds to continue Water for Food, that there will be further development there. It's an incredibly prospective area for the state. So I'm very proud of the work that the state government has been doing and our track record in seeking to drive a different conversation in terms of economic development, making sure that we are creating investor-friendly environment for the private sector to bring their expertise to the table. And I want to finish on a short but very positive note. And I want to give the team at the Water Corporation a pat on the back for a project that they're running. So we've talked about some really big investments across the state and the agenda as a state that we are trying to run, a state government that we are trying to run in making sure that we get the fundamentals right but also build on what the opportunities are. Water Corporation's running a project up in the West Kimberley. They've set up a centre pivot using the wastewater stream that they have out of one of the Broome treatment plants. Now, my first preference was that they actually created a commercial opportunity for someone, but the amount of water that's going through precludes that from happening at this point in time. So instead, they're growing Rhodes glass under a centre pivot. They're baling it and selling it to local producers, and they're using the funds to support community groups in the West Kimberley. So initiatives like drug awareness programs, local animal welfare. They're helping the local senior high school run a science and innovation forum to get their kids excited about getting into science and engineering. And that is an ongoing opportunity for the West Kimberley being delivered by Water Corporation. Further to this, and this is the bit that I'm really excited about, is that they're providing a wastewater stream to a neighbouring property where there's an Aboriginal corporation doing work to plant in a savanna-style plantation seeds that are at risk of becoming extinct, that are native to the West Kimberley. And for those of you that haven't heard about gubbinge, it's a bush plum. It's got 50%, or I think it's 50 times more vitamin C contained in one of these than an orange. So it's bush medicine, but there's an enormous market for it on the international stage. And this Aboriginal corporation is providing training, proper training pathways and jobs for people living in the area. but the opportunity is to take what they're doing in that Savannah-style plantation and go to remote communities that have access to water, form cooperatives across the region so that they can scale up and actually access that market on an international basis. So from a wastewater stream from the Broome Wastewater Treatment Plant, not only are we providing an income stream to support community groups, but there is a real economic diversification opportunity there, and it was wonderful to visit with those people while I was up in the Kimberley not too long ago. So I think for me, when you that notion that you say just add water and the possibilities are endless, that's a project that Water Corporation doesn't have to or doesn't need to do. It is beyond what is required of them, which is to deliver safe drinking water and wastewater services to every community in a very big state. But it is undoubtedly something that is making a difference and has the potential to drive an economic outcome. I think our water future is bright. I think our planning and use of this precious resource can unlock opportunity or it can block it. I think we need to do it sensibly. I think we need people like yourselves at the table, and you are always welcome to make sure that we know exactly what your views are when we're dragging our heels, when we're not doing enough. But on occasions like this, when we do have opportunities to give people pats on the back, I think there's opportunity to do that as well. So thank you very much. I see no reason why our state can't continue to grow and prosper if we get the settings right going forward. Thank you.